Louisiana Hayride, October 1956. 20 minutes before the biggest performance of his life, Elvis Presley sat backstage with his head in his hands and told his mother, Gladys, "I can't do this anymore." What happened in the next 90 minutes, the breakdown, the prayer, the transformation, became the night that defined what it meant to be Elvis Presley. The breaking point, Louisiana Hayride Municipal Auditorium, Shreveport, Louisiana. October 16, 1956, 7:40 p.m. Elvis Presley sat on a metal folding chair in a concrete hallway backstage, his head in his hands, his leg bouncing uncontrollably. The kind of shaking that comes from something deeper than nerves, the kind that comes from fear. 21 years old, already famous, already on the cover of magazines. Already the kid whose hip movements on television had made parents write letters of complaint and teenagers scream until they fainted. But tonight was different. Tonight was Louisiana Hayride, the show that had given him his first real break 2 years ago when he was nobody. The show where he'd promised the producers that when he got famous, he'd come back for one final performance. And now, he was here. And he couldn't breathe. The pressure had been building for months. The Ed Sullivan Show, the movie deal, the constant touring, the screaming crowds that had gone from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands, the death threats from parents who thought he was corrupting their children, the radio stations that refused to play his music, the critics who called him vulgar. Everyone wanted a piece of Elvis Presley. Everyone had an opinion about what he should do, how he should act, what kind of music he should make. And Elvis felt like he was being torn apart. His mother Gladys had traveled with him from Memphis for this show. She was sitting in the dressing room 20 feet away, but she knew. Mothers always know. She walked into the hallway and sat down beside her son. "Baby," she said quietly, "talk to me." Elvis didn't look up. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Mama, I can't do this anymore." A mother sees her son breaking. Gladys sees something in her son's eyes, pure terror. Gladys Presley had seen her son through everything. Poverty so deep they'd eaten nothing but cornbread for weeks. The two-room house in Tupelo with no electricity. The eviction when Elvis was 13. The move to Memphis with everything they owned in a borrowed truck. She'd seen him struggle, seen him dream, seen him practice until his fingers bled, seen him get rejected and get back up. But she'd never seen this. Never seen him look like he wanted to disappear. "What do you mean, baby?" Gladys asked gently. Elvis lifted his head. His eyes were red. "I mean, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I'm Elvis from Tupelo or Elvis Presley the star. I don't know if people love me or love the person they think I am. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I ever was." His voice cracked. "And I'm so tired, Mama. I'm so tired of trying to be what everyone wants me to be." Gladys watched her son's hands trembling in his lap. She'd noticed he'd lost weight, that he barely slept anymore, that the light had gone out of his eyes somewhere between the Ed Sullivan Show and now. She thought about the little boy he used to be, the one who would sing on the porch just because it made him happy, the one who didn't care if anyone was listening, the one who sang because music lived inside him and had to come out. "Elvis, baby, look at me." He looked up at his mother. "Do you remember when you were 8 years old and you sang at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair?" Gladys asked. Elvis nodded slowly. "You sang Old Shep and you cried real tears because that song made you feel something. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't trying to be anything. You just felt it and you sang it, and people cried with you because they felt it too." Gladys took both of his hands in hers. "That's the gift, baby. Not your voice, not your looks, not the way you move. The gift is that you feel things deeply and you let people feel them with you. That's what makes you special." "But Mama, what if I've lost that? What if all this pressure and all these people telling me who to be has made me forget how to just feel?" "You haven't lost it," Gladys said firmly. "It's still there. It's just buried under all this noise. All these people telling you what you should be." She squeezed his hands. "So tonight, we're going to cut through all that noise. Tonight, you're not going to think about what the colonel wants or what the critics say or what the teenagers expect. Tonight, you're going to sing like you're 8 years old again, like you're on that porch in Tupelo and it's just you and me." "What do you want to be?" Gladys asked. Elvis's eyes filled with tears. "I just want to sing, like I used to, like when it was just you and me on the porch and nobody was watching and nobody cared if I was good enough. I just want to feel that again." "Then do that tonight." "Mama, there's 15,000 people out there. Half of them hate me. The other half expect me to be perfect. How am I supposed to just sing?" Gladys squeezed his hand. "Baby, let me tell you something. All those people out there, they don't matter. Not tonight. Tonight, you're going to walk on that stage and you're going to sing for one person." "Who?" "Me." Gladys's voice was firm. "You're going to sing for me, like we're back on that porch in Tupelo, and it's just you and me and the crickets. You're going to close your eyes and forget every single person in that audience except me. Can you do that?" Elvis's eyes filled with tears. "What if I mess up?" "Then you mess up, and I'll still love you, and we'll go home. And tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next." Gladys pulled her son into a hug. "But Elvis Aaron Presley, you listen to me. You are not singing for critics tonight. You're not singing for fans. You're not singing for people who hate you. You're singing because God gave you a voice and you're supposed to use it. That's all. Nothing more complicated than that." Elvis held on to his mother and cried. 21 years old, famous, on magazine covers, and crying in his mama's arms like a little boy. "I'm scared, Mama." "I know, baby. But you're going to do it anyway, because that's what brave people do. They're scared, and they do it anyway." The walk to the stage. Elvis walks toward the stage, but his hands won't stop shaking. 8:15 p.m., 15 minutes before showtime. Elvis stood up, wiped his eyes, straightened his shirt. Gladys had gone back to the dressing room to give him space. But before he could walk toward the stage entrance, Gladys called out, "Elvis, wait!" She walked over and handed him something, a small piece of paper, folded. "What's this?" "A prayer. I wrote it for you. Don't read it now. Read it right before you walk out. And remember, you're singing for me tonight, nobody else." Elvis tucked the paper into his pocket. He walked down the concrete hallway toward the stage entrance. His hands were shaking, his heart was pounding, his mouth was dry. He could hear the opening act finishing their final song, could hear the crowd's applause, could hear the announcer starting to introduce him. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Louisiana Hayride is proud to welcome back for one final performance the young man who got his start right here on this very stage 2 years ago." Elvis pulled out the folded paper his mother had given him. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely unfold it. On the paper, in Gladys's handwriting, "Dear God, my boy is scared tonight. Help him remember he doesn't have to be perfect. He just has to be himself. And help him remember that no matter what happens out there, he's still my son, and I'm still proud of him. Amen." Elvis read it twice. Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "Just sing for Mama. That's all." The announcer's voice boomed, "Please welcome Elvis Presley." The crowd erupted. 15,000 people screaming, whistling, stomping. Elvis walked onto the stage, the performance that changed everything. The performance begins, and something impossible starts happening. The lights hit him like a wall, blinding, hot, disorienting. Elvis walked to the microphone, picked up his guitar. His hands were still shaking. He looked out into the audience. Couldn't see faces, just a sea of shadows and lights. 15,000 people, 15,000 expectations, 15,000 opinions. Then, Elvis did what his mother told him to do. He stopped looking at the crowd. He closed his eyes. And in his mind, he pictured one person, his mama, sitting on the porch in Tupelo, just the two of them, crickets chirping, warm summer night, no pressure, no expectations, just singing because it felt good. Elvis started playing Heartbreak Hotel, the song that had made him famous. But something was different. When Elvis sang that night, he wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to be Elvis Presley the star. He wasn't trying to move his hips the right way or hit the notes perfectly or make the crowd go wild. He was just singing, like he used to. Before fame, before pressure, before everything got complicated. And something impossible started happening. By the end of the first verse, the screaming began to fade. Not because people were losing interest, because they were transfixed. This wasn't the Elvis they'd seen on television. This wasn't the hip-shaking rebel or the dangerous young man their pastors had warned them about. This was something else entirely. This was raw. This was real. A woman in the fifth row, who'd come with her husband specifically to confirm that Elvis was as vulgar as the newspapers said, found herself with tears in her eyes. She couldn't explain why. A teenage girl who'd come prepared to scream until she lost her voice found herself going completely silent, just listening. Actually listening to the words, to the emotion, to the vulnerability in his voice. A music critic from the Shreveport Times who'd come ready to write another scathing review put down his notepad halfway through the first song. Years later, he'd say, "I came to document a spectacle. Instead, I witnessed an artist being born." Elvis moved through Blue Suede Shoes. Don't Be Cruel. Hound Dog. Each song stripped of its performance element, reduced to pure emotion. The crowd fell deeper and deeper into silence, not the hostile silence of judgment, but the reverent silence of people witnessing something sacred. Then Elvis started Love Me Tender. He was singing with his eyes closed, picturing his mama's face. And somewhere in the second verse, tears started running down his cheeks. He didn't try to hide them, didn't try to stop singing, just let them fall. 15,000 people watched Elvis Presley cry on stage, and one by one, they started crying with him. An elderly man in the back row, a World War II veteran who'd come because his granddaughter begged him, felt tears on his face for the first time since the war ended. Something about Elvis's vulnerability reminded him that it was okay to feel things. That strength and sensitivity weren't opposites. A young mother holding her sleeping baby felt something break open in her chest. She'd been so tired, so overwhelmed, feeling like she had to be perfect all the time. And watching Elvis admit he was struggling, admit he was human, somehow gave her permission to admit she was struggling too. By the time the song ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the Louisiana Hayride Municipal Auditorium. When the song ended, there was a long moment of complete silence. Then the entire auditorium erupted. Not the wild screaming of fandom, the standing ovation of respect. 15,000 people on their feet, applauding not for Elvis Presley the star, but for the human being who'd just shown them his heart. Elvis opened his eyes and saw it, felt it, the acceptance, the love, not for his performance but for his authenticity. He looked stage left where Gladys was standing in the wings. She was crying too. She mouthed, "I'm proud of you, baby." Elvis smiled. For the first time in months, he felt like himself again. He finished the show with "That's All Right," the song that started everything. And for the first time in months, it felt like coming home. What happened after backstage, after the show, Elvis collapsed into a chair, exhausted but at peace. The show's producer came in, shaking his head in disbelief. "Elvis, I've been producing shows for 20 years. I've never seen anything like that. You didn't just perform tonight. I don't even have words for what you did." Elvis smiled tiredly. "I just sang for my mama." Gladys sat beside him, holding his hand. "Did I do okay, Mama?" "Baby, you did more than okay. You showed them who you really are. And that's the bravest thing a person can do." The legacy that Louisiana Hayride performance in October 1956 became legendary. Bootleg recordings circulated for decades. Musicians studied it. Critics called it the moment Elvis transitioned from performer to artist. But Elvis never talked about it publicly. Never explained what happened backstage. Never told anyone about the breakdown, the prayer, his mother's words. It was private, sacred, between him and Gladys. 50 years later, they find Gladys's prayer note. In 2006, nearly 50 years after that performance, a researcher going through Elvis's personal belongings at Graceland found something tucked into an old Bible. A small piece of paper, folded, yellowed with age. Gladys's handwriting, the prayer she'd written for her son that night. But there was something else. On the back of the prayer, in Elvis's handwriting, dated October 16th, 1956, "Tonight, Mama reminded me why I sing. Not for fame, not for money, not to prove anything to anyone, just because God gave me a voice and it would be wrong not to use it. I was so scared tonight, thought I couldn't do it, thought I wasn't good enough, Thought all these people expected something from me that I couldn't give them. But Mama said to sing for her. Just her. Nobody else. So I closed my eyes and I pictured us back on the porch in Tupelo, before everything got complicated. Before I was Elvis Presley the star. When I was just Elvis, Gladys's boy. Singing because it felt good. And something happened tonight that I can't quite explain. When I stopped trying to be what everyone wanted me to be, when I stopped performing and just started being real, that's when they loved me most. All this time I've been so scared that if people saw the real me, they wouldn't like what they saw, that I had to be bigger, louder, more exciting, that I had to be perfect. But tonight I cried on stage. I let them see me scared and tired and human. And instead of rejecting me, they stood up and applauded, not for the performance, for the truth. Maybe that's what people really want, not perfection, just truth. Mama taught me that tonight. She taught me that being vulnerable is braver than being invincible, that showing people your heart is more powerful than showing them your talent. I don't know if I'll remember this lesson tomorrow, don't know if the pressure will make me forget again, but I want to write it down while it's fresh. The times I'm most afraid to be myself are the times I most need to be myself. And I hope I never forget that no matter how many people are watching, no matter how high the stakes get, the only person I really need to sing for is Mama. Because when I sing for her, I sing from my heart. And that's the only place real music comes from. Thank you, Mama. For tonight. For everything. For reminding me who I am when I forgot. I love you. Elvis. When this note was displayed at Graceland in 2007, over 1 million people came to see it. Many stood in front of it crying, because Elvis's fear wasn't unique. His struggle wasn't special. Every person who's ever felt the pressure to be something they're not, every person who's ever felt like they were pretending, they all saw themselves in those words. Have you ever felt like you couldn't go on? Like the pressure was too much, and then someone reminded you of who you really are? Share in the comments. Sometimes we need someone to help us remember our own strength. October 1956. A 21-year-old kid sat backstage and told his mother he couldn't do it anymore. And his mother said, "Then don't do it for them. Do it for me." That night became the most legendary performance of Elvis's career. Not because he was perfect, but because he was real. Here's what Gladys understood that the rest of the world didn't. Authenticity is more powerful than perfection. Elvis had been trying to be what everyone wanted him to be. The perfect performer, the good boy, the rebel, the sex symbol, the wholesome entertainer. He was being pulled in 1,000 directions by people who all had different ideas of who Elvis Presley should be. And his mother said, "Stop, just be my son, just sing like you used to." That's the lesson. When you're trying to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to yourself. But when you strip away all the expectations and just show up as who you really are, that's when magic happens. 15,000 people saw Elvis cry on stage that night. And instead of losing respect for him, they respected him more. Because vulnerability is strength. Authenticity is courage. How many of us are trying to be what other people want us to be? How many of us have forgotten who we are under all the expectations? Gladys wrote a prayer for her son that said, "Help him remember he doesn't have to be perfect. He just has to be himself." That's what we all need to hear. What would your Sing for Mama moment look like? What would it mean for you to stop performing for everyone else and just be yourself? Share below. Your authenticity might be the thing the world needs most. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories for more moments proving that the bravest thing you can do is stop pretending and start being real. Share this with someone who's carrying too much pressure, trying to be too many things for too many people. Remind them, just be yourself. That's enough. And if you're the one breaking down backstage right now, hear this. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to meet everyone's expectations. You don't have to be anything other than who you are. Find your mama. Find that person who sees you, really sees you, and reminds you that who you are is enough. Elvis was told to sing for one person and forget everyone else. He did, and it became the performance of his life. Maybe your life is waiting for you to do the same thing. Stop performing. Start being. That's when the magic happens.